Hi, my name is Jim Kelly, and I hope this is going to be the first in a long series of videos and blog entries uh, demonstrating and showing particular moments of how I built my eMove robot. Um, my son recommended I do this. He thought it would be nice if I had a nice blog. So for Jimmy, I'm doing this for you and the grandkids, okay? And I hope everybody else gets to learn something about how I did it, my problems, and how I overcame all the tasks as I went along. So the first thing, of course, that Gail recommends that you do before anything is calibrate your printer. So that's what I'm starting off here with. This is going to be how I set up my Ender 3 printer, 3D printer, to calibrate my parts. So let's move on into that. Get myself all set up again here, and here you can see I've called up my Ultimaker Cura, I should say. That's the splicer or slicer that I use. So the parts are provided. The calibration parts are provided by Gail on the website, and I have that listed on the blog. So I'm just kind of rotating them around here a little bit so you can see their shape and size. You can see that this tongue and groove arrangement, one piece is supposed to fit inside the other, and then you had the rectangle peg that's supposed to fit in the rectangle hole. And let me show you what I got when I did my first print. When I did my first print, I got the parts all right. Everything looked good. Came out nice. Good. I'm using ABS, by the way, which is kind of what they recommend. Some people are doing it in other plastics, but this has got the best properties. So when I did all this, here's my rectangle end, and here's my hole, and I tried to mate them up, and the hole, it doesn't fit. And when I try to use the tongue and groove feature, of course, it won't fit either. So I'm not having much success as far as calibration. And I checked all these dimensions, of course, using my caliber. I'm not going to try to get into all the little holes and show you how much it was off. Just know that I measured it with my inside calipers and my outside calipers and the depth stick on the end. And everything looked good except for the inside dimension of the hole and the inside dimension for the tongue and groove. Everything was just a tad bit too small. So I had to go back into Cura and my slicer and adjust for that. So let me show you what I did. Put myself back up on the screen so you can see me while I'm talking through this. Now, almost everything I used was default. Almost. But I did make some changes. On the quality, I went to the initial layer height and I increased that from 12 to 18 based on the recommendation that you see popping up in that little black box. Let me move this over a little bit. And it tells you there that the thicker the base, the first height of your first print, the thicker that is, the better the adhesion would be. So I increased that a little bit to get better adhesion. Then I went down here to my walls, and I'm going to have to move myself a little bit here. That's not going to work either. All right, so I'm just going to give you just a little bit of me. I went into my walls there. I wanted you to see that black box pop up there, the horizontal expansion. Basically, what it says is that if the holes are the wrong size, if they're too big, put a positive offset in there to shrink those holes down a little bit. And if they're too small, put a negative offset in there to enlarge them a little bit. So I did. I put a little bit of a negative number in there. I actually started out with negative 0.03. And then I did this next print. And I ended up with this arrangement. Whoops, forgot to switch my camera. I ended up with this arrangement. I actually got pieces to join. Okay, you can see that I've got the tongue and groove joined, but obviously it didn't go all the way in. It went partially in and stopped. Now, when I tried another combination, they wouldn't go in at all. I kept flipping parts until I did get a combination where they went in. And I looked a little closer, and I thought, I need to enlarge them just a little bit. So I went back to the slicer, and I increased that number to what you saw there, that 0.06, the negative value, to make the holes a little bit larger. And when I did that, then I got this combination. As you can see, I actually have the rectangle in the hole. Okay, so everything fit now. And the tongue and groove went together just fine. But it wasn't that ideally perfect. I actually had to work, and it didn't quite go flush like it is now. You can see I have a pretty good calibration and a very nice tight fit on all that. But let me show you what I discovered I was also having a problem with. It's not calibration related. You can see that my calibration is right, but what I had a problem with, let me see if I can get this turned around where you can see it. I can see it real clear in my eyeballs here, but there. Now it's starting to show up. Let me get, there it is. Back it off and get a little bit tighter focus. Can you see this edge right along here? Can you see that it's kind of got a shadow line where it looks like it's kind of a separate piece? Okay, this is the surface that was mounted to the bed of my printer. And I'll show you my settings again on my first print, okay? But I want you to see that I'm getting what they call elephant's foot. Okay, the bed of my printer is just a little bit too hot. And that first print is actually melting and spreading out a little bit. So in order to get these pieces to fit, I had to take a file and just lightly brush that off. Once I brushed off that elephant foot, then all my calibration proved to be correct. Okay. And everything went together just fine. Now, that may have been, and it is, as a matter of fact, what was happening here and why I could only get it to go in from one side and only to a certain depth with that second attempt. But I didn't catch it at that time, but I did on this one. See, so when I got rid of that elephant foot, everything fit together just fine. So let me drop this down. Go back to looking at my ugly face. Move myself over here out of the way. I showed you with the horizontal expansion, how I got my hole sizing large enough so that everything fit together. So I did that. What I'm running at for material, I set my printing temperature at 235. The manufacturer's recommendation was anywhere from 220 to 260, and everybody says start at about 240, mid-range. Well, I went a little bit lower. I went 235, but I increased the temperature of my plate, my build plate temperature right there. I set it at 90 for the initial layer, and I kept it there throughout the whole print. Well, I'm going to have to drop that. I think I'm going to leave the initial at 90 to get better adhesion. But then the rest of it, when it's printing, I'm going to drop that temperature back to about 85 and try it and see if that gets rid of my elephant foot. But that's what I'm going to have to do. Now, my calibration is, I'm liking my calibration. It looks good. I just have to work on my elephant foot so that my pieces fit together without having to file them. And even if I leave it, with a little bit of elephant foot, it didn't take much effort just to kind of file that little piece off. So I'm going to tell you I'm happy with my calibration and success. My first video, my first project with the robot, and I consider it a success. So with that, guys, I'm going to leave it with you and have a good day.